In a world where opinions, likes, and follows seem to hold more weight than ever before, it's easy to lose sight of what truly defines your value. We live in a society that constantly sends us messages about what we should look like, achieve, or possess to be considered enough. But the truth is, your worth was never meant to be dictated by external factors. It was always meant to come from within. Defining your worth internally means breaking free from the trap of seeking validation from others. It's about realizing that no accolade, compliment, or external approval will ever fill the void if you don't already believe in your own inherent value. This doesn't mean you won't appreciate kind words or recognition when they come, but it does mean that your sense of self won't crumble in their absence. Let's think about it for a moment. How much energy do you spend worrying about what others think of you? How often do you shape your choices, your actions, even your appearance based on an invisible audience? Now imagine redirecting that energy inward toward discovering what makes you feel proud, joyful, and alive, regardless of who's watching. When you define your worth internally, you reclaim your power. No one can take it from you because it doesn't depend on anyone else. You begin to understand that you are worthy simply because you exist. You are not defined by your job title, your relationship status, the number on a scale, or the opinions of those around you. Your worth is intrinsic. It's unwavering. Of course, this is easier said than done. Defining your worth internally is a practice, not a one-time decision. It requires you to unlearn years, perhaps decades of conditioning. It means being mindful of when you're seeking approval and gently reminding yourself to look inward instead. It involves building self-trust, listening to your inner voice and believing it has something valuable to say. You might stumble along the way. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when the pull to seek external validation feels overwhelming. That's okay. Each time you bring yourself back to the truth that your worth is not up for negotiation, you strengthen that internal foundation. The beauty of defining your worth internally is that it liberates you. It allows you to show up authentically, to live a life aligned with your values, and to take risks without fear of judgment. It gives you permission to be human, flawed, growing in enough just as you are. So ask yourself today, who am I without the noise of external opinions? What makes me feel proud of who I am, regardless of what anyone else might think? Start there and keep reminding yourself that the only validation you truly need is your own. We live in a world that often equates perfection with success. From flawless social media posts to airbrushed images on magazine covers, we're constantly bombarded with the idea that we need to be perfect to be worthy. But here's the truth, perfection is an illusion, and chasing it will only leave you feeling exhausted and inadequate. True growth, connection, and joy come when you allow yourself to embrace imperfection. To embrace imperfection means recognizing that being human is inherently messy. Life isn't a perfectly curated timeline. It's a collection of successes, failures, lessons, and moments of vulnerability. When you accept this, you stop seeing imperfection as a flaw and start recognizing it as a part of your unique story. Your quirks, mistakes, and imperfections are what make you real and relatable. But why is this so hard? Because many of us have been taught that imperfection equals weakness. We've internalized the belief that if we make a mistake, fail, or show vulnerability, we'll be judged or rejected. So we cover up our flaws, avoid risks, and strive to meet impossible standards. Over time, this constant pursuit of perfection becomes suffocating, draining our confidence and joy. The irony is, the very thing we fear, rejection, is often what drives connection when we let it go. Think about it. When someone admits a mistake or shares an embarrassing story, doesn't it make them more relatable? Their vulnerability creates a sense of connection because it reminds us we're not alone in our struggles. When you embrace imperfection, you give others permission to do the same, creating deeper and more authentic relationships. This doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to improve or grow. Embracing imperfection isn't about settling. It's about shifting your mindset. Instead of aiming for flawless, aim for authentic. Instead of fearing failure, see it as a stepping stone toward growth. Celebrate progress over perfection and effort over outcomes. How do you begin to embrace imperfection? Start by letting go of the idea that you need to have it all together all the time. It's okay to admit you're struggling or that you don't have all the answers. The people who truly care about you won't judge you for it. They'll respect your honesty. Next, challenge the critical voice in your head. When you catch yourself thinking, I should have done better, or I can't believe I messed that up, pause and reframe it. Replace self-criticism with self-compassion. Remind yourself that everyone makes mistakes and that you're doing the best you can with what you have. Another powerful practice is to focus on your strengths. While it's important to acknowledge areas for growth, don't lose sight of what you're already good at. Celebrate your wins, no matter how small they seem. Recognizing your strengths will help you build confidence and see your imperfections as just one part of a much bigger picture. Surround yourself with people who value authenticity over perfection. Seek out those who accept you as you are, flaws and all. These are the people who will encourage you to take risks, try new things, and grow without fear of judgment. When you embrace imperfection, you step into your power. You stop wasting energy on trying to be someone you're not and start living fully as who you are. You become free to take chances, make mistakes, and learn from them. And most importantly, you give yourself permission to be human. So let go of the myth that you need to be perfect to be worthy. You are already enough, messy, flawed, and beautifully imperfect. In fact, it's your imperfections that make you uniquely you. Instead of hiding them, let them shine. They're not a weakness, they're your greatest strength. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most profound acts of self-respect and self-care you can practice. Yet, for many of us, boundaries can feel uncomfortable, even selfish. We fear disappointing others, being judged, or causing conflict. But here's the truth. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. They're about creating space for you to thrive. They protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being, allowing you to show up as your best self in all areas of life. At its core, setting healthy boundaries is about recognizing your needs and honoring them. It's about understanding that your time and energy are limited resources that must be protected to maintain balance and prevent burnout. When you constantly say yes to things that drain you or neglect your own needs to meet the expectations of others, you're not just doing yourself a disservice, you're also diminishing the quality of what you can offer to those around you. The first step to setting boundaries is self-awareness. You can't protect what you don't understand. Take the time to reflect on what makes you feel overwhelmed, stressed, or taken for granted. These are often signs that your boundaries are being crossed. Ask yourself, what do I need more of? What do I need less of? Where am I overcommitting? Once you've identified your boundaries, the next step is communicating them. This can be daunting, especially if you're not used to asserting yourself. But remember, boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about expressing your needs clearly and kindly. Use I statements to make your message feel less confrontational. For example, instead of saying, "You always interrupt my work," try, "I need uninterrupted time to focus on my tasks." One of the most challenging aspects of setting boundaries is learning to say no. Many of us are people pleasers by nature, and the word no can feel harsh or unkind. But saying no is not a rejection of someone else, it's an affirmation of your own priority. Think of it this way. Every time you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else, often your own needs or goals. Saying no when necessary is an act of integrity and self-respect. Boundaries also require consistency. Once you've communicated them, it's important to uphold them, even when it's uncomfortable. People may push back, especially if they're used to you always accommodating their needs. Stand firm. Over time, they'll learn to respect your boundaries and you'll gain confidence in enforcing them. Another key to healthy boundaries is understanding that they can and should evolve. Life changes and so do our needs. Maybe a boundary that worked in one phase of your life no longer serves you, or perhaps new challenges require you to set additional limits. Regularly check in with yourself to assess whether your boundaries are still aligned with your priorities and well-being. It's also important to remember that setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting people off or being rigid. Healthy boundaries are flexible and compassionate. They take into account both your needs and the needs of others. For example, you can set a boundary with a friend who often vents to you by saying, I want to support you, but I need to schedule these conversations when I have the mental energy to really listen. This approach ensures you're honoring your limits without shutting people out. The benefits of setting healthy boundaries are profound. They reduce stress, prevent resentment, and create a greater sense of balance in your life. Boundaries also foster healthier relationships. When you're clear about your limits, you give others the opportunity to understand and respect you better. At the same time, you model the importance of self-respect, inspiring those around you to set their own boundaries. Lastly, setting boundaries is an act of courage. It requires you to prioritize your well-being, even when it feels uncomfortable. It asks you to value yourself enough to say, this is what I need to be okay. And in doing so, you create a life that honors who you truly are. Take a moment today to reflect on the boundaries you need to set. Where do you feel stretched too thin? Where do you feel unseen or undervalued? Start small. Choose one area to focus on and take the first step. Remember, boundaries are not walls. They're bridges to a healthier, happier, and more authentic you. Self-compassion is a powerful yet often overlooked tool for living a fulfilling life. At its heart, it's about treating yourself with the same kindness, care, and understanding that you would offer a close friend. It's about being on your own side even when things don't go as planned. For many of us, this can feel unnatural. We're so used to criticizing ourselves harshly, holding ourselves to impossibly high standards, and feeling unworthy when we fall short. But self-compassion is not a luxury. It's a necessity for emotional resilience, growth, and well-being. To practice self-compassion, you first need to recognize the critical voice in your head. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake or encounter a setback. Are your thoughts supportive, or do they sound more like, I can't believe I did that, I'm such a failure? This inner dialogue matters. If your self-talk is filled with blame and judgment, it's time to shift toward gentleness and understanding. The first component of self-compassion is self-kindness, offering yourself warmth and care instead of harsh criticism. When you stumble or struggle, remind yourself that it's okay to be imperfect. You human, and humans make mistakes. Imagine what you'd say to a friend in the same situation. You wouldn't berate them or point out all the ways they could have done better. Instead, you'd offer encouragement and remind them that one mistake doesn't define them. Why should you deserve anything less? The second component is recognizing our shared humanity. When you're going through a tough time, it's easy to feel isolated, as if you're the only one struggling. But suffering is a universal experience. Everyone faces challenges, failures, and moments of doubt. Reminding yourself of this can be profoundly comforting. It shifts your perspective from, why me, to I'm not alone in this. This sense of connection can soften the sting of hardship and remind you that struggle is a natural part of life. The third component is mindfulness, being present with your emotions without judgment. Often, when we experience pain or failure, we either push it away, pretending it doesn't exist, or we become consumed by it, letting it define us. Mindfulness allows you to acknowledge your feelings without getting lost in them. It's about saying, I'm feeling disappointed right now, and that's okay. This moment is hard, but it won't last forever. Practicing self-compassion doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It's not about making excuses or lowering your standards. In fact, self-compassion often leads to greater accountability because it creates a safe space for you to acknowledge your mistakes without fear of shame. When you're compassionate with yourself, you're more likely to reflect on what went wrong and make meaningful changes, rather than getting stuck in a cycle of self-blame. One way to cultivate self-compassion is to practice self-soothing techniques when you're feeling overwhelmed. This could be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, placing a hand on your heart, or speaking comforting words to yourself like, "This is hard, but I'll get through it. I'm doing the best I can." These small gestures can have a powerful calming effect, helping you to center yourself in moments of distress. Journaling is another effective way to nurture self-compassion. Write about a recent challenge or mistake and reflect on it with kindness. What would you say to a dear friend in the same situation? How can you reframe the experience to focus on growth rather than failure? Writing helps to externalize your inner dialogue, making it easier to recognize and shift unhelpful patterns. Another practice is to challenge the perfectionist tendencies that often drive self-criticism. Remember, perfection is not the goal, progress is. Celebrate small wins and recognize the effort you put in, even if the outcome wasn't perfect. Self-compassion is about valuing the process of learning and growing, not just the results. It's also important to set boundaries with yourself and others to create space for self-compassion. Overcommitting or constantly putting others' needs before your own can leave you feeling depleted and resentful. Prioritize time for rest, reflection, and activities that bring you joy. When you take care of yourself, you're better equipped to show up for others. The benefits of self-compassion are profound. Research shows that people who practice self-compassion are more resilient in the face of adversity, less likely to experience anxiety and depression, and more likely to pursue their goals with determination and creativity. Self-compassion also enhances relationships as it reduces the tendency to project self-criticism onto others. Most importantly, self-compassion allows you to build a healthy, supportive relationship with yourself. You become your own ally rather than your harshest critic. And when you treat yourself with kindness, it becomes easier to extend that same kindness to others, creating a ripple effect of compassion in your life. Today, take a step towards self-compassion. When you hear that critical voice in your head, pause and replace it with words of kindness. When you're struggling, remind yourself that it's okay to feel this way. And when you make a mistake, treat yourself with the same grace you would offer a friend, because you deserve it, always. In a fast-paced world filled with endless distractions, expectations, and competing demands, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters to you. We're constantly bombarded with messages about how we should live, what success looks like, and what we should strive for. But when you live your life based on external expectations rather than your own deeply held beliefs, you can end up feeling unfulfilled, disconnected, and even lost. That's why it's essential to anchor yourself in your values. Anchoring in your values means identifying what truly matters to you and letting those principles guide your decisions, actions, and relationships. Values are like a compass. They give you direction and help you stay grounded, even when life gets chaotic. They remind you of who you are at your core and what you stand for, enabling you to live a life that feels authentic and purposeful. The first step to anchoring in your values is clarifying what they are. While this may sound simple, it can be surprisingly challenging. Many of us haven't taken the time to reflect deeply on our values because we're so busy living according to what we think we're supposed to prioritize. Start by asking yourself some key questions. What qualities do I admire most in others? When have I felt truly proud of myself? What was I doing? What activities or moments bring me the deepest sense of joy and fulfillment? If I stripped away societal expectations, what would I want my life to stand for? Write down your answers and look for patterns. These reflections will often point you toward your core values. For example, if you feel most alive when helping others, compassion or service might be one of your values. If you feel proud when you stand up for what's right, integrity might be a guiding principle. Once you've identified your values, the next step is to assess how aligned your life is with them. Are you making choices that reflect your values, or are there areas where you're compromising them? For example, if family is one of your core values, but you're constantly working late and missing important moments with loved ones, there may be a disconnect that needs addressing. Similarly, if creativity is a value, but your daily routine leaves no room for self-expression, it's time to reconsider your priorities. Anchoring in your values often requires saying no to things that don't align with them. This can be difficult, especially if it means going against societal norms or disappointing others. But every time you say yes to something that conflicts with your values, you're saying no to living authentically. Remember, it's not about rejecting everything outside of your values. It's about creating a life where your core principles take precedence. One of the biggest benefits of anchoring in your values is that it provides clarity in decision making. Life is full of complex choices, and it's easy to get overwhelmed or stuck in indecision. But when you're clear about your values, decisions become simpler. You can ask yourself, does this choice align with my values? Does it bring me closer to the person I want to be? If the answer is no, you have your direction. Anchoring in your values also gives you resilience in the face of challenges. When life throws you curveballs, your values act as a foundation to help you stay steady. For example, if you value perseverance, you'll find the strength to keep going even when things get tough. If you value kindness, you'll respond to adversity with grace rather than anger. Your values don't just guide you when things are going well, they support you when things are hard. It's important to note that living by your values doesn't mean life will be free of conflict or doubt. In fact, there may be times when following your values feels uncomfortable or inconvenient. For example, standing up for your beliefs might mean having a difficult conversation or taking a path that feels less secure. But in the long run, aligning with your values leads to a deeper sense of integrity and fulfillment. Another way to anchor in your values is to incorporate them into your daily life. This can be done through small, intentional actions. For example, if one of your values is connection, prioritize quality time with loved ones, even if it means saying no to other obligations. If you value personal growth, set aside time each day to learn, reflect, or work on a skill. If you value health, make choices that honor your body, like exercising, eating well, or getting enough rest. By weaving your values into your routines, you create a life that consistently reflects what matters most to you. Finally, remember that your values are a living, evolving part of who you are. They may shift or grow as you move through different seasons of life. What matters most is that you stay curious and reflective, regularly checking in with yourself to ensure you're living in alignment with what you hold dear. When you anchor in your values, you create a life that feels meaningful and true. You're no longer living on autopilot or chasing someone else's version of success. Instead, you're guided by principles that resonate deeply with your soul. So take the time to uncover your values, honor them, and let them light the way forward. In doing so, you'll not only create a life you're proud of, you'll inspire others to do the same. In a culture that often glorifies achievement and outcomes, we rarely take the time to pause and celebrate the journey. We're taught to focus on the destination, the big wins, and the end goals. But what about the countless steps that got us there? What about the lessons, the growth, and the courage it took to keep going? Celebrating your journey is not just about marking milestones. It's about honoring the process, the effort, and the person you've become along the way. Life is not a straight line from point A to point B. It's a winding path full of highs, lows, detours, and unexpected turns. Each step you take, whether it feels like progress or not, is part of a larger story. When you learn to celebrate your journey, you shift your focus from the pressure of where you're trying to go to the richness of the experience itself. You begin to see that every moment, successes and failures alike, holds value. The first step to celebrating your journey is practicing gratitude for how far you've come. It's easy to get caught up in what you haven't achieved yet or the challenges still ahead, but take a moment to reflect on where you started. What obstacles have you overcome? What skills have you gained? What inner strength have you discovered? Recognizing your progress helps you see that even when it feels like you're standing still, you've already accomplished so much. Celebrating your journey also means acknowledging the effort you've put in. Too often we dismiss our hard work as insignificant or assume that unless we've achieved a tangible result, our efforts don't count. But every step you take toward your goals matters. The late nights, the sacrifices, the moments when you pushed forward even when it was hard, all of it deserves recognition. Celebrate the small wins, the incremental progress, and the resilience it took to keep going. Another way to celebrate your journey is by reframing your challenges as opportunities for growth. Every setback, failure, or detour has taught you something valuable. Maybe it helped you build resilience, develop patience, or gain clarity about what you truly want. Instead of focusing solely on the struggle, celebrate the lessons you've learned and the strength you've gained from navigating difficult times. It's also important to celebrate your journey by staying present. When you're constantly looking ahead to the next goal or comparing yourself to others, you miss the beauty of where you are right now. Take time to savor the moment, no matter where you are on your path. Notice the progress you've made, the people who have supported you, and the experiences that have shaped you. The journey itself is a gift, and celebrating it means appreciating it in real time. Celebrating your journey doesn't have to be extravagant or formal. It can be as simple as journaling about your progress, sharing your achievements with a trusted friend, or treating yourself to something that brings you joy. What matters is that you take the time to honor your efforts and recognize your worth regardless of the outcome. A powerful way to celebrate your journey is to reflect on your personal growth. Who were you when you started this path, and who are you now? Maybe you've become more confident, compassionate, or courageous. Maybe you've discovered new passions or let go of old fears. Celebrate the evolution of who you are, not just what you've done. Celebrating your journey also fosters self-compassion. When you take the time to honor your progress, you remind yourself that you're doing the best you can, and that's enough. You begin to see that your worth isn't tied to a specific achievement or milestone. It's inherent in the effort and heart you put into everything you do. In addition to personal reflection, celebrating your journey can be a communal experience. Share your story with others and invite them to celebrate with you. Not only does this strengthen your connections, but it also inspires those around you to appreciate their own journeys. Your courage and perseverance can serve as a reminder that growth is possible for everyone. As you celebrate your journey, remember that it's not about perfection, it's about progress. It's not about comparing your path to someone else's. It's about embracing your unique experiences and the lessons they've brought you. Life isn't a race or a competition. It's a personal journey, and every step you take is worth celebrating. Finally, celebrating your journey is about giving yourself permission to enjoy the process. Life is too short to only celebrate when you reach the finish line. The moments in between, the struggles, the victories, the quiet realizations are just as meaningful. By celebrating your journey, you cultivate a mindset of gratitude, resilience, and joy that carries you forward no matter what lies ahead. Today, take a moment to pause and honor your journey. Reflect on how far you've come, recognize the effort you've put in, and celebrate the person you're becoming, because every step you've taken matters and every part of your journey deserves to be celebrated. As we come to the end of this reflection, let us remember that the journey of self-discovery and personal growth is not a straight line, but a dynamic and evolving process. Anchoring in your values, embracing imperfection, practicing self-compassion, setting healthy boundaries, celebrating your journey, and defining your worth internally. These are not one-time actions, but lifelong practices that require patience and courage. The beauty of this journey lies not in reaching some imagined finish line, but in the transformation that occurs along the way. Each step you take, each lesson you learn, and each moment of self-kindness strengthens the foundation upon which you build your life. You become not just someone who survives, but someone who thrives, living authentically and aligned with your truest self. So as you move forward, carry this with you. You are enough as you are, but you are also capable of growth. Your worth is inherent. Your imperfections make you human, and your values are your guiding light. Celebrate the small wins, honor your efforts, and never forget that every part of your journey, even the messy and uncertain moments, holds meaning. When you focus inward, define your path, and stay true to your values, you create a life that reflects your deepest aspirations. And in doing so, you inspire others to do the same, not through words, but through the quiet power of a life well lived. You are your greatest investment. Choose yourself every day and watch how your world transforms. The journey is yours, and it's worth celebrating, always.